We pay our respects to Aiko and for all of her work and all her tremendous and unique contributions to the redress movement. I want to say a little bit about the Manzanar Committee and the award that we are presenting to Aiko. It grew out of our pilgrimage, the 42nd annual pilgrimage. And before I get into that, there's a gentleman in the back row there shaking his head in astonishment that it's 42 years, because he's the guy who started it all, who started the pilgrimage in 1969, a 7-man war for Otani in the back there. He's the guy that was the first chairman of the Manzanar Committee and was very crafty and smart. He roped in some older Nisei, one of whom was my mother, and got them to keep going and work with him. And they did a remarkable number of things back in the late 60s and early 70s. And to this day, we're still dealing with, it's kind of astonishing on one level, we're dealing with some of the same issues that Warren was fighting back then. I brought a copy, or we actually made a copy of the plaque that was placed at Manzanar, sits outside of the entrance to the National Historic Site, with the words, concentration camp, which I think is a very important thing to make note of. And, aside from Warren, we have a number of other half of you guys, 90% of you guys will be introduced as. I'm usually on the other side listening to you guys talk and learning from what you guys are talking about. But Professor Art Hansen is here, who played a seminal role, very instrumental role, was one of our keynote speakers at one of our pilgrimages, and gave a great talk about the role that the Manzanar Committee and that the Manzanar Pilgrimages in particular played in the redress movement, and how it lent a certain coherence and impetus and spurred on the redress movement at different times. And we want to thank Art for all of his great contributions. I saw Don Hata here. There he is. Consistent voice, diligent, consistent voice, pushing us forward and keeping us going. And there's many of you. And you'll notice this beautiful program from the 42nd annual pilgrimage. Sorry, we are all getting older. I think I was, what was that, 11 first? So it has Mary Higuchi's one of her beautiful paintings here. So she was gracious enough to allow us to publish this program. And please take one. Please take one of these, because this is what we do. It's all Warren's fault, but we still keep going. And you know, we wanted to make sure that people saw that we did honor Aiko, along with some of the other very important figures in the redress movement. We selected the theme Champions of Civil Rights. So William Horry was one, Frank Emmy, obviously Fred Korematsu. So we've selected this year, we wanted to make sure that the younger people knew about the history and knew about the struggles and of the sacrifices that the Nisei and others had made to get us to this point. And while we're still struggling over certain words, we take our victories when they come, and we get our victories. And we've been at this a long time, but two very important things happened that made me feel like our struggles are not in vain. JCL just passed Power of Words resolution at their convention. Put it on a good version of that. Mako Nakagawa, who was one of the principal authors of that resolution, was our keynote speaker at this pilgrimage. And she was a very powerful speaker about the need to tell the truth about our history and to tell the truth about incarceration. And along with that, the resolution that passed in JCL, the LA Times had a little editorial today talking about how politicians and right-wing ideologues shouldn't be writing textbooks, and they talked about the Texas example and how the Texas textbook issue, and they cited a number of things, Thomas Jefferson being edited out and you know, bastardizing history about Thomas Jefferson. And they also mentioned that the incarceration of the Japanese American community was edited in such a way that it distorted history and said it wasn't based on racism or racial prejudice. And that was the LA Times editorial. And I think that's the result of our work, of all of our work in pushing for and demanding that the truth and an accurate interpretation of history be told. So one of the things that evolved, Rose Ochi, who cannot be here today, she's at a wedding up north, but she came up with an idea, along with my Uncle Jack, of developing the Sue Embrey Legacy Award. And Rose said that my mother would be remembered for her tenacity, her passion, and her purpose. And this is what we see this award as. We give it to people we find to be extremely passionate and tenacious and have purpose. And Aiko can clearly fit that bill, and then beyond. So we see this award as a way of the Manzanar Committee honoring those in the community who have given us also a sense of purpose and helped us with our passion and helped keep us going, and who are, we hope, to be as tenacious as they have been, and continue to fight for and continue to push the broader society to understand what actually did happen to the Japanese, the Nikkei community on the west coast of the United States. So this is why we give this award. And it's also got another name, but we'd like to say it's the Sue Embrey Legacy Award. Before we present that award,
it's funny that you mentioned Warren's fault, because it's really his fault that I'm standing before you. Some of us, I think all of us probably have had role models and mentors in their lives, and Warren is probably one of mine, for obvious reasons, some less. He mentored me at UCLA, the Asian American Studies Center, mentored a lot of students into learning about themselves, their history, their culture, becoming activists in the community, and I'm basically a product of that. He was but one, but and getting to Aiko, I'm not going to talk about her accomplishments and this. If I was doing this at the pilgrimage, which was the original plan, yeah, it would be. But I think everyone here is very familiar with what she's done, whether it's with National Archives or Our Words or what have you. So I'm not going to deal with that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tell a little personal story. Back when I was working with Warren, back at UCLA, a member of the UCLA Nikkei Student Union, at the time the organization was really struggling. It was a fledgling organization trying to get restarted. And one of the things that Warren helped us, encouraged us to do was to look at our history. And an obvious thing was the redress struggle at the time. And so what we did was we decided to sponsor an entire week of events surrounding the Day of Remembrance. We called it the Week of Remembrance. And one of the people that Warren suggested that I speak to was Aiko. And one thing led to another, and I brought Aiko along with Dale Minami and Frank Emmy, who's just recently passed, to speak at UCLA. And little did I know, because I was still learning my history, still learning about the interpretation. I read farewell to Manzanar like most high school students, but for me, because my family was all from Hawaii, none of them were in camp. And so I didn't have that personal connection to our history in that regard. It wasn't until I started boning up my history, starting getting really in touch with this, getting angry, sitting in the Asian American Studies reading book after book, article after article about the internment and incarceration. It was a very abstract concept to me in a lot of ways. It wasn't until I heard Aiko and Dale and Frank speak this one fateful afternoon in the Academy second floor lounge, our student union at UCLA, that it really started to come together to me. For me. And as I recently wrote when Frank passed, I didn't realize it before that day, but after that day I had three new heroes in my life. And you talk about, and again I didn't know, you talk about three of the heaviest of heavy hitters in our community, Dale, Frank, and Aiko. Can't get much bigger than that. And then going on, I was able to build and continue relationships with these people who I consider heroes, still do. And a lot of these people who've been part of my life, part of my life as an activist, have shaped my views, what I think I should be responsible for. And it's why I'm active with the Manzanar Committee today. I want to pass on what I've learned. And I get that from people like Warren, people like Aiko, who encouraged me, inspired me, taught me what we're all about, what we should be all about. They were role models and mentors, and it's something that I hope everybody's had a chance in their lives to have, people like that, who inspire them and encourage them. The only regret I had was, as I told Aiko not too long ago, both her and her husband Jack, I worked with them times on Warren's campaign, political campaign and stuff like that, and I just treasured just sitting in the campaign headquarters talking with them. Sometimes it seemed like hours when it was only even though it was only a few minutes, because I just got so much, from them. It happened several times, and it's something I miss. And just getting to know them so well, and being able to, again, constantly being inspired and encouraged to stay involved. And that's really, to me, what it brings it all home with this award, because this is what the award is all about. This is legacy we're talking about. And this inspired me to do what I do, because most of my focus with the Manzanar Committee is working with students, because they are our future. That's why I quoted the National Festival. That's why I did our blog, our Facebook page. That's our future. And so, a lot of basically what I'm doing here today, what I'm doing with the Manzanar Committee and with other organizations I work with, is primarily because of folks that belong to Manzanar. And to both of you, congratulations on your achievements. That's it.
And Terry Caballo, who's the other co-chair of the Manzanar Committee, my cousin. It's bigger than the family, but it was a big family.
It was.
So, you want to say that this is?
Well, this is the award this year, and it reads the Manzanar Committee Sue Kunitomi Embrey Legacy Award, presented to Aiko Herzig-Yoshinaga for dedication to the truth. And the date was the pilgrimage date, April 30th, 2011. Aiko, can you stand up? Come up. You need to be in the front. Pleasure and an honor to even have Aiko here with all of us. I'm kind of happy about this. So, would you like to speak and say something?
Oh, very little. I want to thank everybody and the Manzanar Committee in particular for all the work that went into putting this very informal but very friendly gathering. And I appreciate everybody who took the time even though Carmageddon didn't happen, I appreciate you making the effort to come. My family members and all my close friends. It's so nice to have you here to participate and to share in this honor. I just feel bigger than life. My head should be busting with all the nice things that have been said about me, but I want everybody to know that what I did because of what other people had already laid the path for me. Michi Wagon, William Horry, Dr. Hanson, Dr. Hata, all these people had done a lot of work, and I just built upon it. So I have to acknowledge, and I need to acknowledge and thank them for all the work they did. It's like Nadine Hunter, who fought for the words concentration camp of Manzanar, and I want to congratulate Manzanar Committee for being the first camp committee to push for preservation of the 10 different camps as sites, historic sites, and to use the appropriate words, concentration camp. Many people object to that, and we've been hearing a lot more about it recently, but let's say it like it was. When you're not allowed to leave the camp or enter the camp, and you have to have permission to leave your own home, what else is it but a person or a concentration camp? I consider it sort of like American-style apartheid. We were not permitted to live in certain areas, and were confined to a specific area, just like in South Africa, until they were able to get rid of it. Let's hope that with the educational work being done by, thank goodness, all these young people who are picking up the cudgel and leading the fight now, like Gann, and all you young folks, that now the American public is going to learn more and more about this, and perhaps be able to face the truth and admit, even though redress happened, there's some admission, a lot of people don't know about it, that the government did such a grievous wrong against innocent minority group. And I'm very proud of the role that my son-in-law, Warren Furutan, played to get some of this work started way back, how many years ago, 30 years ago or more. And I'm glad to be part of this wonderful family that I have here. Having lived on the East Coast, I really miss the Japanese American community, having grown up here, but then after the camps, having gone to live on the East Coast in New York, actually, for about 30 years, and then moving down to the Washington, D.C. area, and then starting my research work with the Commission. And I'm glad that the Commission issued this report that helped Manzanar to get the preservation site started and to set forth the approval for using the word concentration camp to designate those camps that we lived in as such. I'm so happy that everybody has been really supportive. During the redress movement, the Manzanar Committee did a lot of work, and there were a lot of little different groups like NCRR, Redress Reparations Coalition, and NCJAR, the class action lawsuit. Everybody did their bit to help push for the redress. And I think the Commission's findings that the government did indeed perpetuate the wrong, initiate the wrongful act against an innocent minority group. The Commission's report was very helpful. Actually, it was the reason that we got redress and an apology by the president. I do want to stress the fact that very few people know the author of the Personal Justice Denied, which was the report of the Commission, was Angus Macbeth, a wonderful man who immediately recognized the injustice that happened. He was a lawyer, but he knew very little about the wartime happenings against Japanese Americans. When I found that out when he first came on board the Commission, I was horrified. So how are we going to have a man who didn't know much about it to lead this study, this investigation? But this man was terrific. He immediately saw the constitutional violations the government participated in denying us our rights. And he was very, very a wonderful leader. On top of that, when the redress movement started, we had a great guy named Robert Bratt, who was the first administrator of the Office of Redress Administration, who asked Jack and me to help locate as many people as possible who would be eligible to get this compensation. So Jack and I were really pleased to be asked to participate. And of course they paid something like well over the estimated number of people who were eligible to receive the token compensation. Now Bob Bratt was one who has not been recognized enough by our community, but he had stretched the Civil Liberties Act of 1988 to include as many people, Japanese Americans as possible, who were denied their rights. And he's another unrecognized hero in my eyes that has not been acknowledged enough in our community. And one day I hope that we can do something about it. Also, I had a lot of friends in the National Archive who helped me to dig out information that I was able to present to the Commission, which laid the basis for the report that it issued to Congress, and that helped the Congress to pass the redress law. So there's so much to say, and I could go on and on. Tell me to stop. Thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate very much your being here, and it's a great honor.
Well, it's an honor for us to have you here.
Oh, thank you. Well, I was originally a Manzanar person. I lived, in case anybody knows, Block 12, Building 13, apartment, so-called apartment, number 2. 1213-2. And it turns out, small world, that one of your committee members, Joyce Okazaki, had lived only 3 barracks away from me, and we only found that out recently. She was a youngster.
Yeah, she was a
little 10 years old, and here I was. So I didn't know her, but still, I just wanted people to know people who are familiar with the layout of Manzanar. Oh, there she is. There's a book, Ansel Adams' picture of Joyce.
She's our cover girl.
Yeah. If anybody happens to live on Block 12, I might have known you. But of course, my memory is slipping. 87 years old now, and my memory is getting a little bit weak.
Well, don't sit down. I would just say if anybody has any questions for Aiko, this is the time, because this is all being recorded. And if you have a question for her, here she is.
I didn't give you any warning.
Would you like to sit down?
Oh, no, that's all right.
Are you sure?
There might not be any questions, so that's all right.
Or praise. People should say maybe what they're feeling about what I
Well, I have a question for Aiko, which I thought of when she did a panel at Janum one time, and I remember asking you, but that was a while ago. But the question I had was, how did a nice, quiet Nisei woman, get over all the euphemisms? How did Aiko go from, oh yeah, it's a relocation, it's evacuation, it's it's this and this and this? How did you get past that and then get to the truth of it all?
Well, as most families knew, those who left the camps, it was not very easy to rebuild our lives after the camp. We had nothing. And I had moved to New York because I had a sister who lived there before the war, and she didn't have to go to camp. She used to come and visit us. She was an alien because she was Issei, born in Japan. But she used to come and visit us, American citizen sisters and brothers in the camp. And I used to think, gee, that's strange. She's free. I'm an American. She's an alien. American citizens behind barbed wire. But I didn't give it too much thought. But there were so many of us in the same boat. But after I moved to New York, I had hooked up. It wasn't easy bringing up 3 kids in New York City, believe me. But I hooked up with a group called Asians Americans for Action. And primarily it was Nisei about my age, which was unusual. To have such a progressive group of people my age who were very much social active. And they used to meet and discuss political issues as well as issues facing ethnic minorities, particularly third world people. So they turned my head around. They started getting me to think, yeah, I never thought about all the reasons why the government did this to us. It was, I just hadn't given it enough thought. I was just like all the other Nisei, said, well, forget it, that's behind us. But they woke up in me a curiosity. And so I learned a great deal from them. And then I started to think about, then I met Michi Wegland, who wrote that wonderful book, Years of Infamy. I think she was the first Nisei to write about her own experience as a victim about this. And historically, she did a wonderful job to look up details about how it happened, a lot of who was responsible for making those decisions, and that was very instrumental in inspiring me to look into it. Then I moved down to Washington, D.C. area, actually to the state of Virginia, but where I moved to was very close to the National Archives. So I started going to the archive, first to look up what did the government have on me and my family, because I was worried. I used to march in the streets of New York carrying placards, anti-Vietnam War placards. So I thought, oh, FBI probably has something on me. But actually, the FBI didn't share, or they told me they didn't have anything on me, but maybe the New York office did. Well, I never followed that up because I got wrapped up in finding out about the camps. And I got wonderful help from many people, especially the archivists and Michi Wegler and other authors who had written about it. Then I heard about the commission being established, so I got into research. They hired me as a researcher, and I think I've repeated the story so many times, so I'm not going to say the commission did a good job. Angus Macbeth did a wonderful job, and he wrote the report strong enough for the Congress to pass the Civil Liberties Act, and then the Office of Redress Administration had this wonderful leader, Robert Bratt, for the Justice Department, who doled out the money, and as one of the results, through the Civil Liberties Act of 1988, which gave us the money, also established the Civil Liberties Public Education Fund. And this fund established a program where they gave funding to many organizations, writers, scholars to do research and write about it, and to carry on seminars and programs on educating the broader public about this whole story. One of the benefits of the fund was me, and the UCLA Asian American Studies program under the leadership of, right now, Margie Lee, who is co-authoring this book with me about the Commission's work, but just generally. And this book is going to carry a registry of everybody who spoke, more than 700 people who testified before the Commission back in 1980. 10 different cities, 20 different days. And there will be a registry of everybody who spoke, and what day they spoke. And then there will be some essays written by scholars in this book, scholars and writers and legal experts. Then this book is right now scheduled to come out later next month, and it's called, to follow up on the Commission's title, which was a report, which was titled Personal Justice Denied. Our book is going to be called Speaking Out for Personal Justice. And I'm hoping that there'll be an announcement when the book is available so that you can all get a look at it, or maybe even buy it. At any rate, I've had wonderful help from the UCLA Asian American Studies program to get this done, and Margie Lee is co-authoring this book with me. Thank goodness for her help. She's really efficient, capable, and smart woman. I was hoping she'd be here. I wanted her to take a bow, but she didn't make it again. Okay, well, I think that's about enough. If I answered your question and more. Well, I was really motivated by this progressive group in New York. And then the more I learned in the archives, the more angrier I got. And as I saw these primary documents and saw what they thought of us as little brown men, or people whose brains are formed in such a way as to predispose us to do evil things. That was Mr. Roosevelt's idea of what Japanese people were like. And he had, this was one little tidbit I learned in the art and research, that Mr. Roosevelt believed in this so much that he actually hired a famous anthropologist to confirm what he said. And of course, anthropologists were plain politics. He said, "Oh, you're right, Mr. Roosevelt. These people have a funny brain that do make them do strange, evil things." It's written up someplace. If you ask me, I'll try to find the source of it. But apparently it's true enough to have been published in professional journals. At any rate, learning about all these things that happened by looking at primary documents, which is really very different from reading already published books. This made me more of an activist. When I could see letters signed by certain people recommending actions against us, I must tell you, I was very unhappy. At the same time, I was happy to learn the truth. And hopefully, especially through the Commission's report, a lot of this is truthful and that is documented. So I hope everybody has a chance to really read Personal Justice Denied, the report of the Commission on Wartime Relocation and Internment Civilians, to learn really the truth about how and why this happened to us. And that would be a lesson, hopefully, so it won't happen again, even though the Muslims are having a hard time with it now here.